Blood dripped onto marble that cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. But Melissa wasn't screaming. Wasn't crying. She was cleaning, scrubbing her own blood off the floor of a Mafia Boss's laundry room, whispering the same two words over and over. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Martin Rossi had killed men for less than spilled wine. His empire was built on fear, his heart buried 8 years ago with his wife. He didn't even know his staff's names. But when he found her, defensive wounds, trembling hands trying to erase herself, something ancient and violent woke up inside him. Then she looked up with those shattered eyes and whispered, "Please don't fire me." That's when he realized. Whoever did this was still in his house. Upstairs. Drinking his whiskey. Laughing with his associates. The son of his most valuable partner. And Melissa knew exactly who it was. She just didn't think anyone would believe her. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you are hooked in and ready to enjoy the story, click subscribe and let me know in the comment section where you are watching from, because tomorrow I'll be giving you an interesting story such as this one and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. At 2:37 p.m., Martin was reviewing contracts when something made him pause. A feeling. Inexplicable. Wrong. He'd learned long ago to trust his instincts. They'd kept him alive in a business where hesitation meant a bullet. But this wasn't danger. This was something else. Something that pulled at a part of him he'd buried with Juliana. He stood, abandoning the papers, following an impulse he didn't understand. His feet carried him through the mansion, past the main rooms, down the service stairs he rarely used. The estate was quiet in that dead afternoon way, staff occupied elsewhere, the house holding its breath. The laundry room door was slightly ajar. Martin pushed it open. And froze. The scene before him didn't make sense at first. His brain struggled to process what his eyes were seeing. A woman, one of the staff he registered distantly, was on her knees in the far corner of the laundry room. Her white uniform blouse was torn at the collar, streaked with crimson. Blood dripped from somewhere onto the pale marble floor, each drop loud in the terrible silence. But it was what she was doing that stopped his heart. She was cleaning. Her hands, trembling, bloodied, clutched a white towel, scrubbing frantically at the blood on the floor, trying to erase the evidence of her own suffering. Her breathing came in shallow, silent gasps, as if even pain wasn't allowed to make noise. "What?" Martin's voice came out rough, foreign to his own ears. Her head snapped up. Eyes wide with something beyond fear, terror mixed with resignation, the look of someone who expected the worst and had learned not to be surprised by it. Their gazes locked. He saw it all in that instant. The split lip, the bruise blooming along her jaw, the way she held her left arm against her ribs. The desperate, humiliated attempt to disappear even now, even bleeding. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm sorry for the mess. I'll clean it. Her words fractured, but no tears came. As if she'd learned crying was a luxury she couldn't afford. Something in Martin's chest cracked open, a fissure in the ice he'd spent 8 years building. The sensation was physical, painful, like blood returning to a limb that had gone numb. He moved toward her without thinking, instinct overriding the careful distance he maintained from everyone. She flinched. He stopped immediately, hands visible, non-threatening. When was the last time he'd cared about appearing non-threatening? When was the last time someone's fear of him had felt like a knife between his ribs? "I'm not going to hurt you." His voice came out softer than he'd spoken in years. "What happened?" She shook her head minutely, still clutching the bloody towel. "Nothing. I fell. I'm clumsy. I'll clean this up and—" "Stop." One word, but not a command. A plea. "Please. Stop cleaning." Her hands stilled, But she didn't drop the towel. Didn't know how to exist without being useful, without erasing herself. Martin crouched down slowly, carefully, until he was at her level. This close, he could see the full extent of the damage. Defensive wounds on her hands. Fabric torn with violence, not accident. The kind of injuries that told a story she wouldn't speak. "Who did this to you?" She looked away, jaw clenched despite the pain it must have caused. Silence as shield. Silence as survival. "Look at me." Gentler now, almost a whisper. "Please." When her eyes met his again, he saw something he recognized. The kind of pain that had learned to live in shadows, that had been taught it didn't matter, that survival meant silence and disappearing meant safety. He'd seen that look before. In the mirror. After Juliana. After he'd learned that the world could take everything and expect you to keep breathing anyway. "What's your name?" he asked. She blinked, surprised by the question. As if no one had asked in so long she'd forgotten she had one. "Melissa," she whispered. "Melissa James." "Melissa." He said it carefully, like it mattered. Like she mattered. "I need you to let me help you." "I don't need. You're bleeding." He gestured to her side, where crimson was seeping through her blouse. "You need a doctor." "I can't afford." "I'll handle it." He stood, pulled out his phone, dialed his personal physician. "Dr. Conti. The estate. Nah. And bring your discretion." Melissa was shaking her head, trying to stand, to flee. "Please, I can't. If anyone knows, I'll lose my job." "You won't lose your job." Martin said it with such certainty that she paused. "I give you my word." "Why?" The question burst from her, raw and confused. "Why do you care?" It was a good question. One he couldn't answer. Didn't want to examine too closely. Because she reminded him of himself, broken and pretending otherwise? Because her silent suffering was too familiar, too much like the screaming he did inside where no one could hear? Because for 8 years he'd felt nothing, and suddenly this, her pain, her fear, her desperate attempt to be invisible, was making him feel everything? "Because you're bleeding in my house," he said finally. "And you shouldn't have to clean it up alone." Something flickered across her face. Not trust. Not yet. But maybe the first fragile possibility of it. Dr. Conti arrived within minutes. A gray-haired man who'd patched Martin up more times than either cared to count and who knew the value of silence. "Signor Rossi." He took in the scene with quick, professional assessment. "I'll need to examine her." "I'll wait outside," Martin said. "No." Melissa's voice was stronger now, edged with panic. "Don't. Please don't leave." The plea surprised them both. Martin looked at her, really looked, and saw the truth. She was more afraid of being alone with another man, even a doctor, than she was of him witnessing her vulnerability. "I'll stay," he said quietly. "By the door. Is that acceptable?" She nodded, relief breaking across her battered face. Dr. Conti worked efficiently, asking questions in his gentle bedside manner. Melissa answered in fragments, reluctant truths pulled like teeth. Yes, someone attacked her. No, she didn't scream. Yes, she knew who it was. No, she wouldn't say. Martin listened from his post by the door, hands clenched into fists he had to consciously relax. With every revelation, the rage building in his chest grew hotter, more precise. Someone had done this. In his house. To someone under his roof. And she was protecting them with her silence. 3 cracked ribs, Dr. Conti reported quietly. Defensive wounds on her hands and arms. Facial contusions. Signs of strangulation. He paused, his voice dropping. And trauma consistent with sexual assault. The words landed like bullets. Martin's vision tunneled. The rage he'd been controlling threatened to consume him entirely. Someone had raped this woman. In his house. While he sat in his office 3 floors above. Oblivious. "Did you?" he started, then stopped. Forced calm into his voice. "Melissa. Did someone?" "No." Her voice was hollow. "He tried. I fought. He didn't finish. Just hurt me for fighting." Small mercies wrapped in horror. "Who?" Martin stepped closer, no longer able to maintain distance. "Give me a name." She shook her head, fear filling her eyes again. "I can't." "You can. You will. You don't understand." "Then make me understand." He said if I told anyone, he'd make sure I never worked again. That no one would believe me. That I was lucky he didn't finish what he started. The words tumbled out now, a dam breaking. He said I should be grateful he even noticed me. The cruelty of it, the calculated cruelty, made Martin's hands shake with barely contained violence. "And you believed him?" he asked, softer now. "I've been fired for less." She looked at him with those ancient, exhausted eyes. "I'm a black woman cleaning toilets in a mansion. He's whoever he is. Who do you think people believe?" The truth of it was a slap. The system she described, he was part of it. Had benefited from it. Had never questioned it because it never touched him. Until now. "I believe you," Martin said, and meant it with every cell in his body. "And I promise you, whoever did this will answer for it." "Why?" she asked again, tears finally breaking through. "Why do you care what happens to me?" He knelt beside where she sat, met her eyes with an honesty that surprised them both. "Because someone should have asked if you were okay. Someone should have heard you. And I'm tired," his voice cracked, just slightly. "I'm so tired of people suffering in silence because the world taught them their pain doesn't matter." In that moment, something passed between them. Recognition. 2 people who'd learned to survive by feeling nothing, suddenly feeling everything. "I need a name, Melissa," he said gently. "Please." She closed her eyes. Took a breath that clearly hurt her ribs. When she opened them again, defeat and defiance warred in her expression. "Martinelli," she whispered. "Carlo Martinelli. His father met with you today." The world stopped. Martinelli's son. The associate's brat who'd wandered the house unsupervised. Who Martin had dismissed as irrelevant. Who had found someone vulnerable and taken what he wanted, because men like him always did. Martin stood. His face a mask of cold fury. "Dr. Conti. Take care of her. Spare no expense. She's my personal guest now, not staff." "Signor Rossi," Melissa started. "You're safe now," he interrupted, and it was a vow, a blood oath. "I promise you. You're safe." He walked out of the laundry room with deadly purpose, already pulling out his phone, already making calls that would reshape his empire. Because in the space of 20 minutes, Melissa James had done what 8 years of isolation hadn't managed. She'd made him feel again. And now someone would pay for making her bleed. Martin's office had never felt smaller. He stood at the window, knuckles white against the glass, watching the sun dip toward the horizon. Behind him, Giacomo waited in careful silence, reading the temperature of his boss's rage the way a sailor reads storm clouds. "Tell me again," Martin said, his voice dangerously quiet, "how Martinelli's son ended up alone in my house." He said he needed the restroom. Security escorted him to the East Wing facilities. He must have slipped away after. Must have. Martin turned, and Giacomo took an involuntary step back. In a house with cameras in every hallway, with armed guards at every entrance, Carlo Martinelli must have found his way to the service level, to the laundry room, unnoticed? The service-level cameras have been malfunctioning. Fix it. Now. And find me everyone who was on duty. I want to know how a guest accessed staff areas without a single person noticing. Giacomo nodded, already pulling out his phone. What are you going to do about Martinelli? It was the question Martin had been asking himself for the past hour. The question with no good answer. His father controls the eastern ports, Giacomo continued carefully. 70% of our shipments move through his territory. If you go after his son, Antonio will declare war. We'll lose millions. Maybe more. I know what we'll lose. Then you know this girl. Her name is Melissa. Giacomo blinked. In 15 years, he'd never heard Martin use a staff member's name. This Melissa, Giacomo corrected. She's not worth starting a war over. Pay her off. Give her enough to disappear. Everyone wins. Martin's gaze could have cut steel. Get out, boss. Now. Giacomo left, and Martin was alone with his rage and something more dangerous. His conscience, awakening after years of hibernation. The logical move was clear. Pay Melissa generously. Make the problem disappear. Maintain the profitable relationship with Martinelli. Keep his empire intact. It was what any smart businessman would do. What the old Martin, the one before Juliana died, would have done without hesitation. But when he closed his eyes, he saw Melissa on her knees, apologizing for bleeding. Saw the resignation in her face when she asked who would believe her. Saw the way she'd flinched when he moved too quickly. He saw himself 8 years ago, screaming at hospital walls while his wife and daughter slipped away. While the world kept turning like their deaths were just another transaction. Some things cost more than money. His phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Conti. She's stable. Refusing to move to guest room. Wants to leave. Martin was moving before he made the conscious decision, taking the stairs down to the service level 2 at a time, his carefully controlled demeanor cracking with each step. He found Melissa in the laundry room still, now cleaned of blood. She'd changed into a fresh uniform. Where had she even gotten it? And was attempting to fold linens with bandaged hands, every movement clearly agonizing. What are you doing? Martin's voice made her jump, and he immediately regretted his tone. Softer. You should be resting. I have work to finish. She didn't look at him, focused intensely on the sheet in her hands. Mrs. Kate needs the guest linens for tomorrow's. Mrs. Kate can wait. I can't afford to lose this job. I told you you won't. You said that 2 hours ago. Now she did look at him, and her eyes were hard. Before you had time to think about it. Before you realized what it would cost you to actually care. The words hit like physical blows. What are you talking about? She laughed, bitter and exhausted. I'm not stupid, Mr. Rossi. I know who Carlo Martinelli is. I know his father is important to your business. And I know how this works. I've lived it my whole life. People like you don't go to war for people like me. You don't know me. Don't I? She set down the sheet, turned to face him fully despite the obvious pain it caused. You're already doing the math, aren't you? Weighing what I'm worth against what you'd lose. Wondering if maybe I'm exaggerating. If maybe I wanted it. If maybe it's just easier to give me some money and make this whole messy situation disappear. Every word was true. He had thought exactly those things, even if only for a moment. The shame of it burned in his chest. I wasn't, he started. Don't lie to me. Please. Her voice cracked. Everyone else lies to me. Don't you do it too? Silence stretched between them, heavy with truth neither wanted to face. Martin moved to the industrial washer, leaned against it. Suddenly exhausted. You're right, he said finally. I did think those things. For about 10 minutes, I calculated what it would cost me to pursue this. What I'd lose. How much easier it would be to just handle it quietly. She nodded, something breaking in her expression. Then we're done here. I'll pack my things. But then I remembered something, he interrupted. 8 years ago, my wife Juliana went into labor. She was hemorrhaging, dying, and I stood in that hospital, begging doctors to save her, to do something. And you know what they told me? Melissa had stopped moving, watching him now with wary attention. They said complications happen, that she'd signed liability waivers, that sometimes these things just occur. Clinical. Distant. Like her life, my wife's life, my daughter's life, was just a statistic. An acceptable loss in their efficient system. His hands clenched. They didn't fight for her. Because it was easier not to. Because dead women don't file complaints. I'm sorry, Melissa whispered. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. He met her eyes. I'm telling you because I know what it feels like when the world tells you your pain is inconvenient. When people who could help decide it's too expensive, too complicated, too risky. He pushed off the washer, stood straight. I won't do that to you. I won't be one more person who weighed your suffering against my comfort and found you wanting. Even if it costs you everything? Even then. She studied his face, searching for the lie, the angle, the inevitable betrayal. Found only exhaustion and something that might have been sincerity. Why? The question again, softer now. I'm nobody. I clean your house. You didn't even know my name until today. That's my shame, not your worth. He said it simply, like it was obvious. And maybe that's exactly why this matters. Because I've spent 8 years treating people like furniture. Keeping everyone at distance. Feeling nothing. Being nothing but a machine that makes money and destroys enemies. He paused. You made me feel again. And I don't know if that's a gift or a curse yet, but I know I won't waste it by taking the easy way out. Tears slid down Melissa's cheeks now, silent and steady. I can't testify. Even if you want me to. I can't face him in court, can't have lawyers rip apart my life, can't. Her breath hitched. I'm not strong enough. You survived, Martin said firmly. You're stronger than you know. Surviving isn't the same as being strong. Sometimes it's just not dying yet. The brutal honesty of it struck him silent. What do you want? He asked finally. Not what you think I want to hear. Not what's practical. What do you want? No one had ever asked her that. Not in her 28 years. Not once. Melissa sank onto the bench by the folding table, the weight of the question too much to bear standing. I want to disappear, she whispered. I want to wake up in a place where no one knows what happened to me. Where I'm not the girl who got attacked in the laundry room. Where I'm just me. Whoever that is. That's running. That's surviving. You could do more than survive. Could I? She looked at him with those ancient eyes. You live in a different world than me, Mr. Rossi. In your world, people listen when you speak. They believe you. They care what happens to you. In my world. She gestured to herself, the bandages, the bruises, the uniform that marked her as service, as other, as less. In my world, girls like me disappear all the time and nobody notices. Nobody cares. We're interchangeable. Replaceable. You're not replaceable to me. The words hung in the air between them, more intimate than either had intended. Melissa's breath caught. You don't even know me. Then let me. Martin moved closer, slowly, giving her space to refuse. Stay. Not as staff. As a guest. Recover. Let me prove to you that someone gives a damn about what happened. And then what? You'll go after Carlo? Start a war with his father? Destroy your business over a maid you'll forget about in a week? I don't forget. His voice was rough. Trust me. I don't forget anything. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But belief was a luxury she'd learned to live without. I need time, she said finally. To think. To figure out what I can live with. How much time? I don't know. A day. A week. Maybe forever. She stood, wavering slightly, and he instinctively reached out to steady her. She didn't pull away. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't make me hope. Her voice broke. Don't make me believe this could end any way but badly, and then prove me right. I've had enough disappointment for one lifetime. Martin wanted to promise her the world. Wanted to swear he'd fix everything, make it right. Give her justice wrapped in a bow. But he'd learned something when Juliana died. Some promises you can't keep. Some wounds don't heal clean. I promise, he said instead, that I'll try. That I won't give up on you. And that even if it all goes to hell, you won't go through it alone. It wasn't enough. But maybe it was something. Melissa nodded slowly. Okay. I'll stay. For now. The guest room. No. Firm now. I'll stay in the staff quarters. With people I know. Where I feel less exposed. He wanted to argue, to insist she deserved better. But he recognized the need for control, for familiar ground when everything else was chaos. All right. But Dr. Conti will check on you. And if you need anything, I know where to find you. She said it like she didn't believe she ever would. Martin left her there, in the laundry room that smelled of lavender and trauma, and climbed back to his office where decisions waited with the weight of consequence. Giacomo was waiting, along with Antonio Martinelli's number on his desk. The choice was clear. Call and smooth things over, or burn the bridge and face the war. Martin picked up his phone. But instead of calling Martinelli, he dialed his lawyer. I need you to document everything, he said. Every detail of what happened today. Hospital records, security footage, witness statements. I want it airtight. For what purpose? His lawyer asked. Martin looked at the photograph on his desk. Still face down, still waiting. For when she's ready, he said. For when we fight. If they fought. If she could bear to. If he could be the man he was promising to be. Too many ifs. But for the first time in 8 years, Martin was willing to live in the uncertainty. Because Melissa James had bled in his house and apologized for it. And something about that had cracked open a door he'd welded shut. Now he just had to figure out if he was strong enough to walk through it. 3 days passed in careful avoidance. Melissa stayed in the staff quarters, a small room on the ground floor that she'd occupied for 2 years without anyone noticing. Now, it felt like a cage. Dr. Conti visited twice daily, checking her ribs, changing bandages, asking gentle questions she mostly didn't answer. Martin buried himself in work, taking meetings in his office, issuing orders through Giacomo, conducting business as usual. Except nothing felt usual anymore. He found himself listening for sounds from the lower level. Found himself walking past the staff quarters hallway more than necessary. Found himself wondering if she was eating, sleeping, healing. Found himself caring, and hating how unfamiliar the sensation felt. On the third night, at 2:47 a.m., everything changed. Martin was in his study, unable to sleep as usual, when he heard it. A scream. Brief, choked off quickly, but unmistakable. He was moving before conscious thought, taking stairs in the dark. his heart hammering in a way that had nothing to do with exertion. The staff quarters hallway was dim, emergency lighting casting long shadows. He followed the sound to Melissa's door, heard crying now, ragged and desperate, the kind that came from nightmares you couldn't wake from. He knocked. "Melissa." The crying stopped abruptly. Silence. Then, "Go away. Are you hurt?" "I said go away." But her voice was shaking, and Martin had learned something about her in their brief acquaintance. Melissa James was a terrible liar. "I'm coming in," he said, giving her warning, giving her the control he could. "Don't." He opened the door slowly. The room was small, Spartan. A single bed, a dresser, a window overlooking the service entrance. Melissa sat on the bed, knees pulled to her chest despite her ribs, rocking slightly. "Nightmare?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. The terror still lived in her eyes. Martin stayed in the doorway, not wanting to crowd her, but unable to leave. "Do you want to talk about it?" "No." "Do you want me to leave?" A longer pause. Then barely audible. "No." He stepped inside, leaving the door open, always giving her an exit. Sat in the room's only chair, an old wooden thing by the dresser. Put distance between them. Made himself small, non-threatening. They sat in silence for long minutes, her breathing gradually slowing, his presence somehow settling her panic. "I keep seeing his face," she finally whispered. "Hearing his voice." He said. She stopped, swallowed. "He said I should be grateful." Martin's hands clenched on the chair arms. "He's wrong." "Am I, though?" She looked at him, eyes too bright in the darkness. "Grateful, I mean. That it wasn't worse. That's what everyone will say, right? That at least he didn't finish. That at least I'm alive. That at least—" Her voice broke. "Why is my bar for gratitude so low that he didn't complete the rape counts as lucky?" The question gutted him. Because she was right. Because the world had taught her that her suffering only mattered in degrees of severity, that there was a threshold of trauma below which she should just be thankful and quiet. "You don't have to be grateful for any of it," Martin said firmly. "Not for stopping. Not for surviving. Not for any of it. Then what do I get to feel? Anything you want. Rage. Fear. Grief. All of it. None of it. Whatever's true." She laughed, bitter and broken. "That's the problem. I don't know what's true anymore. During the day, I tell myself I'm fine. That I've survived worse. That this is just another thing to get through. But at night," she gestured helplessly at the room, at herself, at the nightmare still clinging to her. "At night I'm back there. And he's winning." "He's not winning." "Isn't he? I'm hiding in this room. Too afraid to leave. Too afraid to press charges. Too afraid to even exist loudly in case someone notices me." Tears tracked down her face. "I'm exactly where I've always been. Silent. Small. Erased." Martin stood slowly, moved to sit on the floor near the bed. Below her eye level, less threatening. "You're not erased. You're here. You're real. And you're talking to me, which means you're not silent. This doesn't count." "Why not?" "Because you're—" she gestured at him, frustrated. "You're not real life. You're some mafia boss who stumbled on me bleeding and had a crisis of conscience. But in a week, a month, you'll go back to your world and I'll go back to mine. And this," she gestured between them, at the strange intimacy of 3 a.m. honesty. "This will just be a weird story we don't tell people." "What if I don't want it to be?" The question landed heavy between them. Melissa stared at him. "What? What if I don't want to forget this? Forget you. Go back to the way things were." You don't mean that. Don't tell me what I mean. Not angry, just firm. I've spent 8 years sleepwalking through my life. Feeling nothing. Caring about nothing. And then I found you bleeding in my laundry room, apologizing for existing, and something woke up in me that I thought was dead. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. So no, I'm not going to forget this. I'm not going to let you disappear back into invisibility. And I'm sure as hell not going back to pretending my staff aren't human beings with names and stories and value. Why me? She asked, desperate to understand. Why do you care about me specifically? I don't know, he admitted. Maybe because you remind me of myself. Maybe because I see my wife in you. The way the world failed her, fails all of us when we need it most. Maybe because I'm tired of being numb and you made me feel something. He paused. Or maybe there's no reason. Maybe you just matter because you do. Melissa closed her eyes, overwhelmed. I don't know how to let someone care. Then we'll figure it out together. What if I can't testify? What if I'm too weak to fight? Then I'll fight for you. And if your whole empire burns because of me? Then I'll build a new one. He said it simply, like it was obvious. Money isn't life. Power isn't purpose. I learned that the hard way. She opened her eyes, studied his face for the lie. Found only exhaustion and something raw, something honest. I'm scared, she whispered. Of Carlo. Of this. Of you. Of hoping. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself. Hope is dangerous when you've learned to live without it. Martin understood that intimately. After Juliana, hope had felt like betrayal, like moving on meant forgetting, like feeling joy meant diminishing loss. Stay in the house, he said suddenly. Not the staff quarters. Upstairs. In the East Wing guest suite. I already said. I know. You want to stay where it's familiar. But Melissa. He met her eyes. You had a nightmare tonight that made you scream. You're sleeping in a room where anyone could walk in. Where you can hear every footstep in the hallway. Where you're surrounded by reminders that you're staff, not person. He softened his voice. Let me give you a space that's yours. That's safe. That's away from the laundry room and the memories and the hierarchy that tells you don't matter. Your staff will talk. Let them. They'll think I'm that weird. She couldn't finish the sentence. Let them think whatever they want. I don't care. He paused. Do you? She wanted to say yes. Wanted to cling to her invisibility, her safety in smallness. But she was so tired. So tired of making herself disappear. Of apologizing for taking up space. Of living in shadows because the light felt too dangerous. 1 week, she said finally. I'll stay in the guest room for 1 week. Trial basis. If it's weird or uncomfortable or if people start treating me differently. 1 week, Martin agreed. And if you hate it, I'll move you back myself. No questions asked. She nodded, then winced as the movement pulled her ribs. Try to sleep, he said, standing slowly. I'll have someone move your things in the morning. Martin. His name felt strange on her tongue. Too familiar, too intimate. He paused at the door. Yes. Thank you. For not leaving. When I asked you to stay. Something in his chest tightened. Any time. Literally. If you need me, 2 a.m., noon, whenever, just call. He gave her his personal cell number, written on a business card that probably cost more than her weekly salary. After he left, Melissa sat in the dark holding that card, feeling the weight of it. In another life, she would have thrown it away. Would have kept her distance, maintained the walls, protected herself from inevitable disappointment. But maybe, just maybe, she was tired of that life. Maybe she was ready to try hoping, even if it destroyed her. The next morning, Martin personally supervised the move of Melissa's belongings to the East Wing suite. It took 15 minutes. She owned almost nothing. Clothes that had seen better years. A single framed photo of people he didn't recognize. A sketchbook she clearly didn't want him to see, clutching it to her chest when he reached for it. "I draw," she said defensively, like it was a confession. "It's stupid." "It's not stupid. You haven't seen it. Don't have to. Creating something is never stupid." She looked at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. The guest suite was bigger than her entire previous apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens, a king bed with linens softer than clouds, an ensuite bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. Melissa stood in the doorway, afraid to enter. "This is too much. It's a room. It's a palace. It's yours. For the week." He set her small duffel bag on the bed. "There's a lock on the door. Windows that open. 2 exits, the main door and the balcony if you're feeling adventurous. No one comes in without your permission. Not even me. Especially not you," she said, then immediately looked panicked. I didn't mean." "I know what you meant." He smiled, small but genuine. "And you're right. Especially not me." He turned to leave, then paused. "I have a meeting with my lawyer this afternoon. About your case. I won't discuss details without your permission, but I want to be ready." "For when you're ready. If I'm ready." "When?" he corrected gently. "Not if. When." Have you ever had someone believe in you before you believed in yourself? How did it change you? Let me know in the comments. Your stories matter. After he left, Melissa explored the room like a tourist in a foreign country. Touched the silk curtains. Tested the bed. Too soft, too luxurious, too much. Stared at herself in the bathroom mirror. Bruises fading from purple to yellow-green, lip healing, but eyes still haunted. She looked like a ghost in a palace. But maybe that was okay. Maybe ghosts could haunt beautiful places too. She opened her sketchbook, found a blank page, and began to draw. Not the attack. Not Carlo's face. Not her nightmares. Instead, she drew Martin's face when he'd promised to fight for her. Drew the way he'd sat on the floor at 3 a.m., making himself small so she could feel big. Drew the first person in years who'd seen her bleeding and thought she mattered more than the mess. And for the first time since the attack, Melissa felt something other than fear. She felt the dangerous, terrifying, impossible beginning of hope. For 3 days, they existed in careful orbit around each other. Close enough to matter, distant enough to feel safe. Martin brought her meals personally, claiming his chef needed feedback on new recipes. They both knew it was a lie. He wanted to make sure she ate. Wanted to see for himself that she was healing. Melissa accepted the intrusion with cautious grace, letting him sit in the chair by the window while she picked at gourmet food that felt too expensive for her hands to touch. They talked in fragments. Small things. Safe things. She learned he took his coffee black. No sugar. That he'd been running his family's business since he was 23. That he hated olives with an intensity that made her almost smile. He learned she loved thunderstorms. That she'd never been on a plane. That she hummed while she drew, unconscious melodies that filled the silence. Neither mentioned Carlo. Neither mentioned what came next. Until the 4th afternoon, when everything cracked open. Martin entered Melissa's suite, knocking first, always knocking, to find her sitting on the floor surrounded by scattered pages. Her sketchbook lay open, drawings spread around her like fallen leaves. "I'm sorry," she said immediately, scrambling to gather them. "I made a mess. I'll clean. Stop apologizing. He knelt beside her, and before she could protest, picked up one of the drawings. His breath caught. It was a child, maybe 6 years old, with wide eyes and careful braids, standing in a doorway that felt too big, too cold. The detail was extraordinary, every shadow precisely placed, every line speaking of loneliness so profound it radiated off the page. This is... He looked at another. A teenage girl curled in a corner, knees pulled tight, trying to disappear. Another. Hands reaching toward each other but never quite touching. Melissa, these are incredible. They're just sketches. But her voice held something fragile. Hunger for validation she didn't know how to accept. They're more than that. This is, he gestured at the scattered pages, at the raw emotion captured in graphite. This is gift. It's therapy. She took the drawing of the child back, held it carefully. That's me. Age 7. First foster home. Mrs. Patterson's house in Oakland. Martin went very still. Foster care. 13 homes in 11 years. She said it matter-of-factly, like reciting a grocery list. Some better than others. Most just collecting checks. A few. She stopped, jaw tightening. A few shouldn't have been allowed near children. Melissa, you wanted to know why I didn't scream when Carlo attacked me? She looked at him, eyes blazing with something between anger and anguish. Because I learned at 8 years old that screaming brings more pain. That fighting back gets you labeled difficult. That silence keeps you alive. She picked up another drawing. A man's shadow falling across a child's bed. Martin's stomach turned. Mr. Patterson came to my room every Tuesday and Thursday when his wife worked nights. Melissa's voice was flat, distant. I told my social worker. She said I was an imaginative child. Said I was acting out for attention. Said if I kept making trouble, I'd never find a permanent home. Jesus Christ. I stopped telling people after that. Learned to float away in my head when bad things happened. Learned that adults didn't save you. They just moved you somewhere else to be hurt differently. She set the drawing down, picked up another. This one's from the Martin house. Age 12. They locked me in the basement for 2 days because I ate food without asking. Said I needed to learn my place. Martin's hands were shaking. Where are these people now? Living their lives, probably. Maybe still fostering kids. Maybe worse. She shrugged, the gesture too casual for the horror she was describing. The system doesn't care. They needed beds, and these people had space. What happened in those spaces wasn't their problem. It should have been. Should is a word for people with power. Melissa gathered the drawings into a careful pile. I didn't have power. I had survival. And survival meant making myself small. Silent. Forgettable. Martin stood, paced to the window, needing movement to contain the rage building in his chest. Not at her, never at her, but at every person who'd failed her, hurt her, taught her that her pain didn't matter. How did you get out? He asked quietly. Aged out at 18. They give you a garbage bag for your belongings and a bus pass. Say good luck. She laughed without humor. I worked 3 jobs that first year. Slept in a shelter. Saved everything. Eventually got this job through a temp agency. And I was so grateful, you know? To have a roof. To have regular meals. To be invisible in a place where at least the abuse was predictable. This house. Martin's voice was rough. You felt unsafe here even before Carlo. I feel unsafe everywhere. She said it simply, like stating a fact. That's what trauma does. It rewires you to expect pain. To see threats in every shadow. To believe safety is a lie people tell themselves. He turned back to her, this woman who'd survived horrors he couldn't imagine, who'd learned to make art from anguish, who apologized for bleeding. I don't know what to say, he admitted. I'm sorry feels inadequate. I'm not telling you for sympathy. She echoed his words from days ago. I'm telling you so you understand. Why I can't testify. Why I can't put myself in a courtroom where lawyers will rip apart my history, call me a liar, suggest I wanted it, use every trauma I just told you about to prove I'm unreliable. Her voice cracked. I can't survive that. I barely survived the original events. Martin moved back to the floor, sat across from her amid the scattered drawings, a gallery of pain she'd transformed into something beautiful. Tell me about your wife, Melissa said suddenly. You said she died. In childbirth. The subject change was whiplash sharp, clearly intentional. She'd shown him her wounds. Now she wanted to see his. Fair was fair. Martin was quiet for a long moment, staring at the drawing of the child in the doorway. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Juliana. Her name was Juliana. He smiled, sad and distant. She was light. That's the only way to describe her. She made everything brighter just by existing. Laughed like it was her purpose. Believed in second chances, third chances, infinite chances. She sounds lovely. She was infuriating. But he said it with warmth. Always feeding stray cats. Bringing home broken things. Furniture, people, causes. She saw a wounded bird and had to fix it. I was her biggest project. How so? I was harder than. Colder. This business, this life, it makes you into something sharp. But she softened the edges. Made me remember I was human, not just a machine that generates money and solves problems with violence. He paused. She got pregnant. We were terrified. Excited. Started planning a future that felt real for the first time. Melissa waited, letting him find the words. She went into labor early. 34 weeks. Everything was fine at first, then, complications. Hemorrhaging. They tried everything but... His voice broke. She died on the table. Our daughter, we were going to name her Isabella, died minutes later. I held them both. Said goodbye to a future I'd let myself believe in. I'm so sorry. After I... He gestured vaguely. I shut down. Fired anyone who reminded me of her. Destroyed everything she'd built. The gardens, the causes, the warmth. Turned this house into a mausoleum. Turned myself into something barely alive. He met Melissa's eyes. For 8 years, I've been going through motions. Making money. Maintaining power. Feeling absolutely nothing. Until I found you bleeding in my laundry room, apologizing for existing. And something about that, about your pain, your silence, the way you'd learned you didn't matter, it cracked something open in me. He leaned forward. You made me feel again, Melissa. And I don't know if I should thank you or curse you for it, because feeling is agony. She understood that intimately. They sat in silence, two people who'd learned to survive by going numb, suddenly raw and exposed. Can I show you something? Martin asked. At her nod, he pulled out his phone, scrolled to a photo he hadn't looked at in years. Juliana, radiant and pregnant, standing in the unfinished gardens, laughing at something off camera. So alive it hurt to see. She's beautiful, Melissa whispered. She would have liked you. He said it with certainty. She collected wounded things. You would have been her favorite project. I'm not a project. No, you're not. He put the phone away. You're a person who deserves better than what life's given you. And I know I can't fix the past. Can't undo the Pattersons or the Martins or any of the people who hurt you. Can't bring back Juliana or Isabella. Can't make Carlo disappear without consequences. Then what can you do? I can be here. I can believe you. I can fight when you're too tired to fight. And I can promise. His voice intensified. I promise you'll never have to apologize for existing again. Not in my house. Not in my presence. Not anywhere I have influence. Tears spilled down Melissa's cheeks. Why do you care so much? Because 8 years ago, I screamed in a hospital hallway for someone to save my family. And no one did. No one fought hard enough. No one cared enough. He reached out slowly, giving her time to refuse, and when she didn't, took her hand carefully. I can't go back and save them. But maybe I can save you. Maybe that's my second chance. I'm not your redemption, she said, but without heat. No. But maybe we can redeem each other. She looked at their joined hands, his scarred from years of violence, hers stained with graphite and marked by defensive wounds. Two broken people holding each other up in the wreckage. I found something, Melissa said quietly. In your study. I'm sorry, I was looking for paper to sketch on, and I saw. She released his hand, pulled a photograph from her pocket. Martin's breath stopped. It was the photo from his desk. The one he'd kept face down for 3 years. Juliana, heavily pregnant, her hand on her belly, smiling at the camera with such joy it radiated. You kept it, Melissa said. I couldn't throw it away. But you couldn't look at it either. No. She handed it back to him. Maybe it's time. Maybe holding on to grief so tightly you can't breathe isn't honoring her. Maybe, she hesitated. Maybe she'd want you to live again. Really live. Not just survive. Martin stared at the photo, at his wife's face, at the future he'd buried with her. I don't know how to do that. Neither do I. Melissa smiled, fragile but real. But maybe we can figure it out together. Two people who've forgotten how to live, teaching each other to breathe again. He looked up from the photo, saw her, really saw her. Not as a victim or a project or a reminder of his own pain, but as Melissa. Complex and damaged and beautiful and here. You're extraordinary, he said softly. You know that. I'm really not. You survived 13 foster homes. Aged out with nothing. Built a life from scraps. Turned trauma into art. And after everything that's happened, you're still here. Still trying. Still hoping despite every reason not to. He set the photo carefully on the floor between them. That's not ordinary. That's heroic. She shook her head, overwhelmed. I'm just trying not to drown. Then let me help you swim. The offer hung between them, weighted with everything unsaid. The growing connection neither wanted to name, the way proximity was becoming necessity, the dangerous territory of caring too much too fast. One condition, Melissa said finally. Anything. You have to swim too. Not just save me. Actually live. Actually let yourself feel something other than grief and rage. That's terrifying. Tell me about it. He smiled, real and surprised, and maybe the first genuine smile in 8 years. Deal, he said. And in that moment, surrounded by scattered drawings and shared wounds and photographs of people they'd lost, something shifted between them. Not love. Not yet. But the dangerous, fragile possibility of it. The maybe of something more. The next 2 weeks transformed the mansion in ways neither could have predicted. Martin canceled meetings to have breakfast with Melissa in the garden. She sketched while he read reports, their silence comfortable rather than strained. He learned she liked her tea with honey and too much milk. She learned he unconsciously tapped his pen when thinking through problems. Small intimacies that felt enormous. One afternoon, Melissa stood in the doorway of the bathroom, hair wet from attempting to wash it, frustration written across her face. The ribs made lifting her arms difficult, made the simple act of self-care feel impossible. "I can't," she gestured helplessly. "It's stupid, but I can't reach. Let me help." Martin stood from where he'd been reviewing contracts at her desk. "That's not appropriate. Neither is you hurting yourself trying." He moved to the bathroom doorway, careful to maintain distance. "I helped bathe my mother after her surgery last year. It's just hair, Melissa." She wanted to refuse. Pride demanded it. But exhaustion won. "Okay," she whispered. He was gentle in ways she didn't expect from a man built of violence. Tested the water temperature twice. Used the expensive shampoo that smelled like jasmine. His fingers worked through tangles with patience, never pulling, never rushing. "You're good at this," she said, eyes closed against the intimacy of it. "Juliana had long hair. She taught me." His voice was soft with memory. "Said if I loved her, I needed to learn to braid." "Could you?" "Terribly." She'd laugh and redo it herself. He rinsed the soap carefully, shielding her eyes. "But I kept trying." When he finished, wrapping her hair in a towel with careful precision, their eyes met in the mirror. Something passed between them. Recognition. Want. Fear. Martin stepped back quickly. I have calls." "Thank you," Melissa said before he could flee. "For seeing me as human. Not just as broken." "You're not broken. I'm something." "You're healing," he corrected. "There's a difference." That evening, Martin found Melissa in his study. Unauthorized but somehow right. She stood before his bookshelves, fingers tracing spines reverently. "I'm sorry," she said, spinning guiltily. "I was looking for. I didn't mean to intrude." "Stop." He set down his briefcase. "You're not intruding. What are you looking for?" "Something to read." "I haven't." She looked embarrassed. "I haven't had access to books in years. Libraries need addresses. Bookstores need money." The casual mention of her poverty, of going years without books, hit him like a fist. "Take whatever you want." He gestured at the shelves. "All of them if you'd like." "I couldn't." "Melissa." He moved closer. "When are you going to stop believing you don't deserve things?" "When the world stops proving me right." "Fair point." He pulled a book from the shelf. Poetry, worn and annotated. Juliana's. She loved Neruda. Left notes in margins, arguing with him like he could hear her. Melissa opened it carefully, saw feminine handwriting debating meter and meaning. "This is precious. I can't." She'd want someone to read it. To argue back. He smiled. She hated the idea of books as decoration. Said they were meant to be lived with. Melissa clutched the book like a treasure. "I'll take good care of it." "I know you will." She started to leave, then turned back. "Martin? Would you want to have dinner?" "Not like this." She gestured at the formal dining room visible through the doorway. "But real dinner. Together. Like people." His heart did something complicated. "I'd like that." They ate in the kitchen, the chef's night off, just them and simple pasta Melissa insisted on making despite her ribs. She moved through cooking with unconscious grace, humming that wordless melody. "Where'd you learn to cook?" Martin asked, watching her add herbs with no measurements, just instinct. "Mrs. Kate. The housekeeper. She'd let me help sometimes when I first started. Said I had good hands." Melissa smiled, small and genuine. "First time anyone said I was good at something." You're good at many things. You barely know me. I know enough. They ate at the kitchen island, knees almost touching, talking about nothing and everything. Books they'd read. Movies they'd seen. Dreams they'd abandoned. I wanted to go to art school once, Melissa admitted. Applied for scholarships. Got accepted to 3 programs. What happened? I couldn't afford housing. Couldn't risk the debt. Couldn't. She pushed pasta round her plate. I couldn't believe I deserved it. You did. You do. Past tense now. I'm 28. Too old to restart. That's bullshit. Martin's vehemence surprised them both. Juliana went back to school at 35. Got her degree in social work because she wanted to fix the foster system. He paused, smiled sadly. She would have too. Given time. She sounds like she was really something. She was. And so are you. Melissa's breath caught. Don't. Don't what? Tell you the truth. He leaned closer. You're talented. Resilient. Stronger than anyone I've ever met. And the fact that life tried to convince you otherwise is a crime. Martin. I mean it. Every word. They stared at each other across pasta and possibility, the space between them charged with everything unspoken. I'm scared, Melissa whispered. Of what? This. You. The way I feel when you look at me like I matter. You do matter. But for how long? Until the novelty wears off? Until I'm too complicated, too damaged, too much work. Her voice cracked. Everyone leaves eventually. Everyone stops caring. Martin reached across the counter, took her hand carefully. I'm not everyone. You don't know that. You can't promise. You're right. I can't promise forever. Can't promise this won't end badly. Can't promise I won't fail you somehow. He squeezed her hand gently. But I can promise I'm not leaving today. Or tomorrow. Or any day soon. And maybe that's enough. Maybe we just take it one day at a time. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to lean into the warmth of his palm against hers, the steadiness of his gaze, the impossible idea that someone might stay. One day at a time, she echoed. Starting with today. Today was good. Tomorrow can be too. For the first time in her life, Melissa let herself believe it might be true. The call came 3 days later, shattering their fragile peace. Antonio Martinelli was at the gate, demanding entry, demanding answers about why his son was being investigated. Martin had known this was coming, had prepared for it. But facing it, facing the choice between Melissa and Empire, suddenly felt impossible. He found her in the garden, sketching the fountain Juliana had designed, and his heart broke before he even spoke. Martinelli's here, he said without preamble. Her pencil stilled. Oh, he knows I've been investigating Carlo. Knows something happened. Did you tell him? Fear crept into her voice. No. But he's demanding answers. Martin crouched beside her bench. I need you to stay in your room. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. What are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? I don't know yet. She searched his face, and what she saw there made her go pale. You're going to let it go, aren't you? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She stood abruptly, sketchbook falling. I can see it. You're already calculating. Already figuring out how to smooth this over. How to make me disappear again. That's not. Isn't it? Her voice rose, pain making it sharp. You said you'd fight for me. But that was before his father showed up. Before you had to choose between your business and me. And we both know how that choice ends. You're not being fair. Fair. She laughed bitterly. Nothing about this is fair. I'm the one who got attacked. I'm the one bleeding. And I'm supposed to care about being fair to you? Martin stood, frustration and guilt warring in his chest. You think this is easy for me? You think I want to choose between justice for you and everything I've built? Then don't choose. Just, her voice broke. Just fight for me. Like you promised. And if it costs me everything? The question hung between them, brutal and honest. Melissa's face crumpled. There it is. The truth. I'm not worth everything. I'm worth what? Whatever doesn't inconvenience you too much. Whatever fits in the margins of your empire. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. Tears streamed down her face now. Everyone has a price for caring about me. Everyone has a limit. And I'm always on the wrong side of it. Melissa. Go handle your business, Mr. Rossi. She used his formal name like a weapon. I'll pack my things. Make this easy for you. Don't. Why not? We both knew this was temporary. That I was some charity case you'd get bored of eventually. She backed away from him. I should have known better than to hope. Hope is for people who matter. You matter to me. But not more than your empire. Not more than your money. Not more than your precious reputation. She wiped her tears roughly. I was stupid to think I could be more than invisible. Stupid to believe you were different. Martin wanted to argue. Wanted to promise he'd burn it all down for her. But Giacomo was walking toward them, face grim, and the weight of 8 years of building his empire pressed down like concrete. Boss, Giacomo said quietly. Martinelli's getting impatient. Martin looked between Melissa, devastated and furious and so hurt, and the house where a man waited to negotiate his silence. Tell him I'll be there in 5 minutes. Giacomo left, and Martin turned back to Melissa. This conversation isn't over. Yes, it is. Her voice was dead now, worse than angry. Go make your deals. I'll be gone by tonight. She walked away, and every step felt like a door closing. The meeting with Martinelli was brutal. My son says your staff is making accusations, Antonio said, voice cold. Says you're investigating him for assault. Your son attacked one of my employees. According to who? Some maid looking for a payday. Martinelli leaned forward. We've been partners for 15 years, Martin. Don't throw that away over someone who doesn't matter. The words hit exactly where Melissa had predicted. Someone who doesn't matter. She matters. Does she? Enough to lose 70% of your shipments? Enough to start a war that'll cost both our organizations millions? Enough to make an enemy of me? Martinelli's eyes were hard. Because that's what you're choosing if you pursue this. Martin was quiet, the numbers running through his head despite himself. The contracts at stake. The territories. The carefully balanced power structure that kept his empire stable. Everything he'd built since Juliana died. Everything he'd used to fill the void where his heart used to be. My son was drunk, Martinelli continued. Maybe he got aggressive. Maybe things went further than intended. But it's not worth destroying everything over. He pulled out a checkbook. Name a price. Pay the girl. Make this go away. And there it was. The easy out. The path that preserved everything. The choice that would destroy Melissa. I need time, Martin heard himself say. To think. Martinelli smiled. Satisfied. Of course. But don't take too long. These things have a way of escalating. It was a threat wrapped in courtesy. After he left, Martin sat in his office, staring at nothing, hating himself. He'd promised Melissa he'd fight, had looked her in the eyes and sworn she mattered more than money. And at the first real test, he'd flinched. When he went to find her, the guest suite was empty. Her few belongings, gone. The sketchbook, gone. Even the book of Juliana's poetry, left on the bed with a note. "Thank you for letting me borrow this. And thank you for reminding me why I don't hope anymore." And Martin sank onto the bed, holding the note, and felt something inside him shatter completely. He'd lost Juliana to circumstances beyond his control. But he was losing Melissa through his own cowardice. And he didn't know which hurt worse. 3 days. That's how long Martin lasted before he broke. 3 days of running his empire like a machine, closing deals, maintaining power, pretending the hollowness inside him was normal. 3 days of Melissa's absence echoing through every room. 3 days of being the man he'd been before. Cold, distant, unfeeling, and hating every second of it. On the 4th morning, he woke at dawn and found himself in the laundry room. The place where everything had started. Where he'd found her bleeding and apologizing, and something in him had cracked open. The room was clean. Sterile. No trace of what had happened. But he could still see her there. Still hear her whisper, "I'm sorry for the mess." And suddenly, the choice became crystal clear. He called Giacomo. Schedule a meeting with Martinelli. Today. To finalize the agreement? To tell him to go to hell. Silence. Then, "Boss, are you sure? This will. I know what it will do. Do it anyway." Next call. His lawyer. File everything. Every charge we have documentation for. Assault. Attempted rape. All of it. Against Carlo Martinelli? Martin, his father will. I don't care. File it. Next. His security team. Find Melissa James. She left 3 days ago. I need to know where she is. It took 6 hours. 6 hours of Martin dismantling business relationships, burning bridges, making enemies of allies. 6 hours of choosing principle over profit, justice over ease. 6 hours of becoming someone who deserved Melissa's hope. When his security chief called back, his voice was grim. Found her. Shelter downtown. Boss, it's not good. Martin was in the car before the man finished talking. The shelter was crowded, dim, smelling of industrial cleaner and desperation. Martin moved through it like a ghost, drawing stares in his expensive suit, until he found her. Melissa sat in a corner, knees pulled tight despite her ribs, sketchbook in her lap. Drawing. Always drawing. She looked up when his shadow fell across her page. Her expression shuttered immediately. What are you doing here? I came to tell you I'm an idiot. Already knew that. And a coward. That too. He crouched down to her level, the way he had in the laundry room. And to tell you I filed charges against Carlo. This morning. Full report. Every detail. Her eyes widened. What? And I told his father where he could shove his business partnership. Used more colorful language, but you get the idea. Martin, you can't. I already did. He pulled out his phone, showed her the legal documents, the police report, the emails terminating contracts. It's done. All of it. She stared at the screen, then at him, tears building. Why? Because you were right. About everything. I was calculating. Choosing empire over you. Being the coward you accused me of being. He set the phone aside. But then I spent 3 days living the life I'd built for myself. Cold. Empty. Successful and alone. And I realized something. What? I don't want to be that person anymore. Don't want an empire built on looking away from suffering. Don't want power that requires me to sacrifice people who matter. He took her hand carefully. You matter, Melissa. More than ports and shipments and business partnerships. More than the money. More than the reputation. You'll lose everything. Then I'll build something new. Something better. Something I can live with. He squeezed her hand gently. Juliana would have been ashamed of the man I became after she died. But she'd be proud of who I'm trying to be now. And I have you to thank for that. I didn't do anything. You made me feel again. Made me see that surviving isn't living. That empire means nothing if your soul is dead. He paused. I can't promise this will be easy. Carlo's father will fight back. This could get ugly. But I promise I won't run. Won't choose convenience over you. Won't let you face this alone. Melissa's tears spilled over. What if I'm still too scared to testify? Then I'll fight without your testimony. I have medical records. Security footage of him in the wrong areas. A pattern of behavior. It's enough to destroy him even if you never set foot in a courtroom. You'd do that? Risk everything even if I can't be brave. You're the bravest person I know. But bravery isn't performing in court. Bravery is surviving what you survived. Bravery is hoping despite everything. Bravery is being here at all. He moved closer. And whether you testify or not, I'm fighting. Because you deserve justice. Because Carlo deserves consequences. And because I'm done being a man who looks away. She threw her arms around him, ignoring the pain in her ribs, sobbing into his shoulder. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. You had every reason not to. He held her carefully, like something precious. I gave you reasons. But I'm asking, begging, for the chance to prove I'm different. That we can be different. Together. She pulled back, searching his face. What are we doing, Martin? This, us, it's messy and complicated and probably a terrible idea. Probably. And I'm damaged. Really damaged. I have nightmares and trust issues and I don't know how to let people care about me. I'm damaged too. Grieving and closed off and better at violence than vulnerability. He smiled. Maybe we're perfect for each other. Or maybe we'll destroy each other. Maybe. But I'd rather risk destruction with you than keep existing in the safe, dead life I built. He cupped her face gently. Come home, Melissa. Not to work. Not as staff. As whatever we're becoming. As someone who matters. As someone I can't imagine my life without anymore. That's terrifying. Tell me about it. She laughed through tears. Okay. Okay, I'll come home. Yeah. Yeah. She kissed him then, soft and tentative and tasting of salt and hope. Let's try being brave together. 6 months later. The courtroom was cold, impersonal, designed to strip emotion from justice. Melissa sat in the witness box, hands trembling despite Martin's steady presence in the gallery behind her. She'd decided to testify after all. Not because she was unafraid. Terror lived in her bones, but because silence was its own kind of death, and she was tired of dying. Miss James, the prosecutor said gently, can you tell us what happened on March 15th? And she did. Voice shaking but clear. Words she'd kept buried erupting like long-awaited rain. Carlo's lawyer tried to tear her apart. Brought up her foster care history, suggested she was unstable, implied she'd wanted attention. But Martin had hired the best victim's advocate in the state. And when she faltered, when the questions got too cruel, she looked back at him. This man who'd chosen her over empire, and found strength she didn't know she possessed. The verdict came swift. guilty on all charges. Carlo Martinelli would spend years in prison. His father's empire crumbled without Martin's support. And justice, imperfect but real, was served. Martin's business took hits. Lost contracts. Lost respect in certain circles. But he rebuilt, slower, cleaner, with partners who shared his new values. Turned out empire built on ethics was harder but worth infinitely more. Melissa enrolled in art school. Used the settlement money from the Martinellis for tuition. Her work, raw and powerful and honest, attracted attention from galleries. She was becoming visible by choice, not by force. And slowly, painfully, she was learning to believe she deserved the space she took up. One evening, 8 months after the trial, Martin found Melissa in the laundry room. His heart clenched, old fear rising, until he saw what she was doing. She was painting, transforming the walls into art. Images of hands reaching, connecting, healing. A mural of resurrection. Reclaiming it, she said when she noticed him. This room doesn't get to be trauma anymore. It gets to be transformation. He moved to her, wrapped arms around her from behind, careful of her paint-covered hands. It's beautiful. It's healing. She leaned into him. We're healing. Yeah, we are. They'd had rough days. Nightmares that left her shaking. Moments when his grief for Juliana overwhelmed him. Arguments about therapy and boundaries and how to love when you've forgotten how. But they kept choosing each other. Kept showing up. Kept being brave even when it terrified them. Thank you, Melissa whispered, setting down her brush, turning in his arms. For seeing me. For staying. For fighting. Thank you for teaching me how to live again. He kissed her forehead. For being worth losing everything. Did you, though? Lose everything? Martin looked around, at the home filling with art and warmth, at this woman who'd resurrected his heart, at the life they were building from ashes. No, he said honestly. I found everything. What does redemption look like to you? Have you ever found healing in unexpected places? Share your story below. We're all learning to be brave together. They stood in the laundry room, the place where she'd bled and he'd awakened, now transformed into something beautiful. Two people who'd learned that love isn't about being unbroken. It's about finding someone willing to help you pick up the pieces. About choosing hope over safety. About believing, despite everything, that you deserve to be seen. I love you, Martin said, the words unfamiliar but true. Melissa smiled, real and radiant and free. I love you too. And in that space between trauma and transformation, they chose each other again. And again. And again. Because that's what resurrection is. Not a single moment, but 1,000 small choices to keep living, keep hoping, keep loving despite the cost. They'd both survived the worst. Now they were learning to thrive. Together. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.